Hey everybody! You might have remembered when we did a video on the Calamondin and how it makes an excellent houseplant, being a lot more resistant to spider mites and unusual temperatures that inside your house might experience that can stress other citrus. The Calamondin is just an excellent houseplant and it really looks beautiful. At the time we did the video, the fruit weren't quite ripe yet, but as you can see, our tree in front of us here is loaded with fruit. I haven't even counted how many are on here and ripening, but even after the initial fruit set, we still have even more fruit up here that are beginning to ripen. And it's about time we trim some of these off. We enjoyed our time being able to look at them, but now I was thinking in this video we could do a tutorial on how to make Calamondin marmalade. It's something we've done with a lot of other citrus fruit like the Thomasville citrus-ade and different kumquats that make really tasty marmalades, but I've heard that the Calamondin can also make a really good marmalade, so we're kind of going to experience this together. I have a recipe from Tom McClendon that I've used with other citrus fruit with really good success, so we're going to try it on the Calamondin itself. But I'll show you guys real quick too, just because we haven't updated on these in a while. Our variegated kumquat here is also doing really good, and it has some nice fruit set. We have about 3 fruits up here, but you can see it's just an absolutely beautiful plant. I got thinking about this one after we posted our video on the variegated rang per lime. So this is still doing great, and eventually we'll harvest from those too. But first things first, I'm going to trim off the many fruit that are on this Calamondin, and then we're going to meet back in the kitchen and kind of show you guys how we're going to do this here. But again, just take a look at that fruit load there. Really an awesome plant. It's always my first recommendation for people when they're looking for a citrus tree and they can only grow stuff indoors. So I'm going to pick these and then I'll see you guys in the kitchen. Check that out, guys. Just before we make it to the kitchen, I wanted to show you our awesome harvest here. This is over 40 Calamondin fruit that we harvested off this little tree here. So we just ended up leaving those few at the top. Now we're going to take these into the kitchen and make some awesome marmalade. Alright guys, so we are back in the kitchen now, and we're going to be preparing these Calamondins to be put into the marmalade. So we have all of our fruit here with the stems removed, and as you can see at this stage, they're actually quite easy peel. If you were to peel one of these Calamondins, which I will, just to show you guys here, it is much like a clementine inside. It has all these removable little sections here, which on their own are quite tart. It's kind of like eating a lemon right now. And you can see there's some big seeds in there. So what we're going to be trying to do is remove as many seeds as we can. That way we have a mostly good textured marmalade that's not too crunchy. So we're going to take these fruit and slice them in half and see what we can remove right now. And then we'll throw them into our pot. So I'll slice up a few of these and then we'll hit the fast forward button so that you guys don't have to sit through all of this here. But again, keep in mind too, this video, even though we're doing it for the Calamondin, this will pretty much go for a lot of other kumquat hybrids and citrus of that nature. So if you are growing like a citrus-ade, something you can get away with outdoors like a Thomasville citrus-ade, this recipe will work for those, and depending if you're lucky enough to grow them mostly to maturity in your area. So if you can get them even to the point where the skin's starting to blush and the flesh inside is already orange, that's probably a good enough point where you could still make a pretty good marmalade out of that. And the fruit are already pretty decent tasting at that point. But the Calamondin is quite sour, so I'm interested to see how this is going to taste in this form. And this recipe that we are using, I'll just show you guys now before we get really into it. This is Tom McClendon's marmalade, so I kind of wrote down the full recipe as well as we're going to do like a half recipe here. So instead of 4 cups of Calamondins, we're going to use 2. I actually have 3 cups in here, but we're going to save the rest to make a Calamondin lemonade, which is pretty simple. You guys have seen me make lemonades in our other videos. It's pretty much 1 part of the fruit juice, half part of sugar, and then you'll go maybe 2 or 3 parts water. Very simple and very tasty for most of your sour citrus there. But if I haven't put it up already, I will put up Tom's original post with this recipe that I was able to find online. And again, this has worked pretty well for us with other citrus varieties, so I think it's going to turn out pretty well for the Calamondins. We'll find out. Maybe this will be a Calamondin marmalade tutorial, or maybe this will be a warning not to make marmalade out of them. So anyways, I'll see you guys when all of these are cut and in the pot. Alrighty guys, so that is all our Calamondin sliced up here. As you can see, I just cut them all in half and de-seeded them, and we saved enough fruit so we can make some Calamondin lemonade in the meantime while we are waiting for the marmalade to kind of boil and get going. So first on our to-do list here, so after we've cut and prepared these Calamondin here, we want to add that cup of water, and we're going to simmer these for 15 minutes. After those 15 minutes are by, then we will add our pectin, which this recipe at 2 cups of Calamondins calls for about 1.5 ounces of pectin, but we'll kind of see based on the consistency that we have whether or not we want to add a little more. Sometimes I go a little heavier on it just because I like them a little bit thicker. I like it when they set that way. And keep in mind too, just look at how many seeds we got from. Probably the amount we used in here was in the ballpark of maybe 30 Calamondins, perhaps a little bit less than that. So 30 Calamondins, and we got hundreds of Calamondin seeds here. You can either grow these, and Calamondin makes a great rootstock for other citrus, or a great plant on its own, of course. Or you could use some of these, or all of them, in some sort of cheesecloth or mesh bag and use that as your source of pectin, because citrus seeds are rich in pectin. So are a lot of other fruits too, but you can add pectin naturally without necessarily having to buy it. But in this case, we have it on hand, so we're just going to use that, and I don't have any mesh bags or anything like that right now, so we'll use the straight stuff, and we'll actually just grow whichever seeds of these I didn't slice in half. So we're going to add our cup of water here, and then I will find a lid for this, but we're going to turn on the stove. I'm going to set that to about medium heat there, so you can see we got our Calamondins there heating up, and I will show you guys once this gets to a rolling boil, because that's when we're going to add our pectin. So I'll see you in about 15 minutes. Alright, so we're about 5 minutes into the Calamondin simmering. I wasn't able to find a lid that fit this pot, but as you can see, these are cooking real nice in there, and they're going to slowly turn a bit more translucent, which is definitely what we want as this goes on. But I did end up making a lemonade out of those remaining Calamondins here, which now we have even more seeds, but Calamondin makes a really good juice, and Mrs. Mulberry just mentioned this would make a really good orange glaze, which is something I didn't even think about, but you better believe next time we get a big Calamondin harvest, we're going to be making some Calamondin cake with a Calamondin glaze, because that would be very, very tasty. But the lemonade itself is delicious. I just squeezed the juice, and now those peels can then be candied or something else, but you can really use 100% of this fruit. It's such a useful fruit, and on top of being a beautiful ornamental inside your house, you really can't go wrong. But we'll give that a sip. And man, that's just so good. All right, we're gonna let these simmer a bit longer, and I'll see you guys when it's time to add the pectin. Okay, so we've had this simmering for about 15 minutes now. So if we take a look at these here, they're looking much, much softer, and we're actually up to a little boil there. So I think it's actually time we'll put that off to the side there. And we have our pectin, which our scale's actually gone up slightly. This was measuring 1.5 ounces here. So we're gonna add that in here. And then basically I'm just gonna stir that in and bring it back to a boil. And then that's supposed to be the point where we'll add the sugar back in and get this all going here. So that is our pectin mixed in there. And of course you guys all know the pectin's gonna help this really thicken up, get nice and jammy and syrupy. And this is gonna be some awesome marmalade, I can tell already. But we'll kind of leave this now. we'll set our, well, we don't even need a timer now. We're just going to keep an eye on this, and once it is back up to a rolling boil, we'll add that sugar. Alright guys, we are nearing our final stages with this Calamondin marmalade. As you can see, after we added the pectin and let it come back to a rolling boil, now's our time to add the sugar. Then we just boil for 1 more minute before we're ready to can this. So I actually have our glass jars, our mason jars, in the oven right now to sterilize them. It's kind of mixed as to whether or not people prefer the oven method or boiling them in water, but I have found, generally speaking, that this method still works pretty well. So we are going to use that, and I disinfected the lids with some rubbing alcohol as well, just to keep everything pretty good. So if we want these to be shelf stable, we can keep them that way. But keep in mind, you don't have to do the whole crazy canning process. If you just want to refrigerate this can easily last a month in your fridge. I've heard some people even getting away with longer, but I'd say pretty confidently you can make this recipe and keep it in there for a month. So let's get to adding that sugar here, which for this recipe here, again, we've adapted it, so we are doing 2 3/4 cups white sugar in this. So it does require a good bit of sugar, but I know this will come out really good. So that is 3/4 cup number 1. We'll do 3 of these here. I'm actually out of our, we don't have our 1 cup scoop right now. That's a little under 2. Almost 3 right there. And then we'll get another up to that 1/2 cup line, and maybe even a little higher than that. That's just about the 1/2 cup line there. And that's a little pinch for what we were missing. So that all should be good there. And of course, all this sugar and pectin and everything good like that will help this thicken up and last a long time. So all that acidity, all that sugar, that will help keep this preserved here. So if your jars are nice and clean, you can get this to all seal real good. So we're just going to stir this, really integrate everything all nicely. And essentially, we're just going to, on the recipe it says to stir constantly, so we're not going to stop stirring this really, we're just going to keep working it in there and let this get back to boiling. I have the heat on medium, by the way. I didn't mention before, but I actually dropped the heat at first when I believe when I was adding the pectin, but I did bring it back up and I have this on medium heat now. You can see that's looking really good there. We have ours a little chunkier here, but you could obviously dice your calamondins a bit more. Kind of whatever consistency you like in a marmalade you could easily achieve here. But this is looking really good. I'm going to do another one of those things where we'll pause it here and fast forward to when this is ready to remove from the heat, and we'll can it basically. And of course, we'll give this a good taste test once everything's nice and cooled down. Alright guys, so as you can see, we got our Calamondin marmalade back up to a boil here. We let it boil for a good minute. Our jars are sterilized after 10 minutes in the oven, kind of between 350 and 400 there, just getting them nice and hot to kill off any pathogens. We are going to try and can these properly. We'll probably keep one in the fridge though, just in case something didn't go right, but this marmalade's looking really good and golden here. We're going to pour this in the jars, let it cool off. I actually have even just a little jar here. We're going to put a little in this so that me and Mrs. Mulberry can give this a taste test before the end of the video, and then we can preserve the rest for future use. So let me just make sure that heat is turned off. I have our little funnel here. This is good for helping me fill these up and know at what point to stop. That way it kind of seals properly, because you do have to get that jam or marmalade up to a certain level. So I just wiped this down with some rubbing alcohol, and now it is good to get this marmalade in. So I'm going to try and see if we could fill up these 2 smaller ones here. I did have a bigger one too, just in case, but I think it would be better to split these up instead. So let's see what we can do here. Alright, and that is right at the line there. I think we will have enough for both of these, which is awesome. If I was a little shy, I could always just leave the one that doesn't seal in the oven. Those are looking so good. Gonna do this one now. Just getting that camera all nice and steamy for you guys. So, as you can see, I actually overfilled that one, so I'm gonna pause this, take off that excess, and then we will get to sealing these here. Alright guys, so I cleaned up my mess with the Calamondin marmalade overflowing in one of these jars here. I just wasn't paying attention, but we were able to fill 2 of these 16-ounce jars and also have a little extra to taste test and even a little extra in the pot there. So be aware that this recipe can make more than 2 16-ounce jars. You could even fill a 32-ounce jar with just, what was that, 3 cups of calamondins? 2 cups of calamondins? Yeah, it was 2 cups of calamondins. So basically a cup of calamondins with this recipe will yield you 1 16-ounce jar of calamondin marmalade. Not a bad return, especially if you have a lot of these, but even one plant clearly can make up to 3 jars of this just with one harvest off of, well, what is probably a 2-year-old plant, just a small little 2x2 plant. But look at that amazing color of that marmalade there. You can see a lot of the peels are kind of closer to the top, so once we are opening and having one of these, we'll probably stick a knife in there and stir it all around and get kind of even distribution of those peels, but everything just looks golden and delicious there. We're gonna let these cool down and solidify. I wanna say they feel a little bit on the runny side, so I would say, and this is just how I like to do things, I'd probably put even more pectin in these, or again, if you're using the seeds, whatever the case, but maybe a little bit more pectin might help, but we're gonna see. We'll see how much this solidifies, but I do like it a little bit chunkier. Either way though, very happy with how these turned out and how they look. So I'm really curious to see how this ends up tasting. So I'll be back with you guys. We'll get Mrs. Mulberry over here and we'll try our little sample one here once it's cool enough. And it is finally time. We went on a little walk to let these cool down, and you could see our 2 jars here, the 16-ounce jars, are both sealed. That little bubble at the top has popped. So our marmalade is already good to go and preserved in those. I actually put this one in the fridge to see what it would be like when it's fully solidified. And you know what? I'm sorry I doubted you, Tom. This did solidify and it looks great. This is a perfect looking marmalade. So very happy with that. We don't have to make any adjustments after the fact, but me and Mrs. Mulberry are going to try this together now. We'll each take a bite. Mrs. Mulberry, you can go first. Get a little scoop of that. Look at that there. All right. Let me see if I can get this with my non-camera hand. You know what, can you help me? All right, so we'll get that other scoop there. Awesome. Now we'll take a big bite of Calamondin marmalade. Look at that, guys. All right, it's going in. Mmm. Mm-hmm. That's good.
That was good.
That's real good. So, guys, Calamondin marmalade, not bad at all. It actually has a slight tartness to it, but it's not as sour as the fruit itself would lead you to believe. That's really good. I could see that going really well on some toast with a little butter or whatever else you put marmalade onto, maybe with a little cheese on a cracker. But again, if I didn't already, I'll include Tom's recipe, and you may have seen too our little adaptation to do the half portion for this, but we got 2 delicious jars of marmalade preserved here, one that we're going to continue enjoying over the next day or 2, and we still had left over to make a really delicious lemonade. So we love the Calamondin trees. They're a really useful houseplant type of citrus. They're absolutely beautiful, and the fruit are so useful for so many different things. But for marmalade, we can give them the thumbs up. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.